While we know it's Geno might definitely apply to Eugenio Suarez hitting home runs, it also might apply to the answer to the question, who are the Diamondbacks trading? However, we have the reasons today why keeping Geno might be the best thing the Diamondbacks could do. We also have more on the Arizona Diamondbacks' first three draft prospects or draft picks, and of course, a preview of the series with the Pittsburgh Pirates. All this in 30 seconds. Don't you go anywhere. Ski and welcome in to another edition of the PHNX Diamondbacks podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. Glad to have you guys here. Excuse me for being a little tired because I was up late being sad about Geno and his post-game press conference from last night. Also, the Diamondback season is over, so there was that to mourn as well. But glad to have you guys here. And of course, this show is brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Go use our code of PHNX365 when you sign up over there. You get yourself some bonus bets. Also, we are brought to you by our friends at Game Time, which is the best place to buy your tickets for concerts, sporting events, and more. Make sure to use our code of PHNX. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. And we are going to talk about Geno being the target of trade talks for what seems like every MLB team, but we're not doing it alone. We have our guy, Jessie Friedman, here with us from Snakes Territory. Jessie, always good to see you, bud, and always good to talk with you about trade deadline stuff. Miss doing it. I wish it was under better circumstances. I wish we were, in fact, talking about the Diamondbacks being buyers instead of sellers, but that feels very unlikely now at this point.
On Snakes Territory earlier today, we were trying to identify some young pitchers that the Diamondbacks could acquire in other teams' farm systems, or I guess in some case, guys who are already in the majors. And it's a very weird and kind of disorienting process, Derek, because you and I have spent a lot of time over the last few years, like, hey, let's talk about Ohtani, or let's talk about JD Martinez for the 100th time, or
Yeah.
talking about guys who are actually major league players, their names that people already know, versus just like digging through farm system rankings and whatnot and trying to figure out who you might want in another organization. But unfortunately, this is the position Diamondbacks are in this year.
You're absolutely right there, and it is unfortunate. Derek Hall was on Arizona Sports today, and he said this, and here is the quote. He said, Jesse, do we want to sell? No. We all want to buy, but I think we have to be realistic, and I think that fans also have to be realistic. I think that watching, rooting for, loving a sports team involves ups and downs, and I think that the downs really suck. The downs, especially when they can last a long time for certain franchises, are miserable for fans to kind of withstand. But then the ups come around. You have something like we had over the course of the show of us doing this together. The Diamondbacks going from one of the worst seasons in franchise history, making it all the way to the World Series, right? So there are ups and downs, but I mean sometimes you got to ride through it, and you have to be realistic that a team needs to make certain moves that you might not like, that you might not be a fan of, but it needs to be done in order to improve the franchise as a whole. It's a nice fairy tale to sit here and think that the Diamondbacks could keep all of these guys that are on expiring contracts, and when free agent time comes around, bring them all back, right? But that's not what's going to happen, nor is that necessarily what's best for this team, quite frankly, right? I mean, like the amount that some of these players are going to command is going to be far beyond, I think, you would want to pay a player for the production you're going to get back. And the Diamondbacks kind of need to utilize what you're doing, right? Looking through the potential available prospects and major league ready players that the Diamondbacks could potentially get from another team, and see where that next, I guess, that next replacement for Zach Gallen, that next replacement for Merrill Kelly could be, in another team's system, it's just difficult, right? Mike Hazen is pretty good at that, though. Mike Hazen is pretty good at identifying talent and kind of finding diamonds in the rough. It doesn't always work out for him, but he's done it in the past.
It is just a really bizarre feeling to be sitting here talking about trading away players that people not only enjoy seeing play baseball, but just enjoy rooting for. I think Eugenio Suarez, I mean, I think all these guys that the Diamondbacks could potentially lose at the deadline are likable and easy to root for. But
Yeah,
Eugenio
that's for sure.
Suarez, I think, has endeared himself to fans in probably a different way. And granted, hitting 55 home runs in the last calendar year is a big part of that.
Yeah,
But
for
he's
sure.
also just a great, you and I have both spent time talking to him. He's very, very friendly, just super open and really embraces where he is and has clearly found a home for himself here in Arizona. And I totally understand. I mean, if fans are like, no, like Geno is why I'm turning on the TV every night to
Yeah.
watch this miserable baseball team that I don't really enjoy watching all that much, except Geno is like going to hit 60 home runs this year. It is hard, and I understand that it's a weird place for this team to be, given the investments that were made this offseason and the expectations that this team had coming in. I don't really think that I even saw this really as I guess in baseball you never know, right? But I certainly did not see us being here when the season began.
Do you? I mean, the Diamondbacks have the second best OPS in baseball currently, right? I mean, you are a person of reason, and I think that you obviously put all emotion aside when analyzing this team. But this is a strange season that is kind of a victim of circumstance, right? Like the injuries really are the thing that is holding this team back. And I mean, even yesterday, Torey was asked during the pregame press conference if you were told before the end of the year that you would lose all of the pieces that you would have lost and you would be sitting here 2 games under 500 at the 102 game point, would you believe it? And Torey said first he would have thought you got hit on the head because there's no way that those two things would be the same. Like there's no way a team would be around 500 while you were also telling me that that you lost all of those pieces, right? So this team has done well, but they are kind of a victim of circumstance with the injuries this year, aren't they?
100%. Yeah. And anyone trying to reduce what's happened this year to, Mike Hazen not doing his job or, not having the bullpen that he should, which I mean, there's some truth to that criticism, right? I mean, Mike Hazen would tell you that himself. And maybe Torey Lovello has made some managerial mistakes. I think we could all agree on that to an extent. But in the bigger picture, yeah, it's really hard to win games when your two best relief pitchers have been gone basically the entire season, when your best starting pitcher has been gone for most of the season at this point, or I guess a good portion of the season, and is not coming back. And then so much of your depth behind him is gone as well. It's just a really, really tough place to be. And sometimes the baseball gods just look down on you, Derek, and they're just like,
Yeah.
no, that you're just it's nothing's gonna go well for you this year. Just deal with it. And it kind of feels like that's what's happened in 2025.
Their representative came to you and were like, "Hey, listen, we had a meeting, we all talked about it, and we decided that this was not going to be your year." And that's what it feels like very much for the
Yeah.
Diamondbacks. But you bring up Geno, and Geno is the guy, right? Like I don't feel like there is this emotional attachment in the same way to other players. And again, that's kind of bizarre considering the length of time that Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen have been here, right? Like Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly both deserve their flowers for what they've done for this organization as members of the starting rotation. However, with Zach Gallen having a down year and Merrill Kelly just kind of once again being Merrill, who just does his job quietly and goes unnoticed, it's hard. It's weird because people again are more attached to Geno. Now, a big part of that, like you said, is the fact that he's on the home run tear that he's on, right? Geno is one of the best players in Major League Baseball this year, has been since the first week of the season. And despite having some slumps and some struggles, consistently has been one of the best sluggers in baseball. It's weird for a team that is still semi in the race with a lot of games left to go to trade away one of the best players in baseball. And again, that's what makes this weird. I don't know if you necessarily see this in other sports where they will trade away a star like this. Now, the expiring contract thing, that is common in every sport because teams do want to try to get something for a player that's not going to be here going forward. However, this, again, this feels strange, and to tug on everyone's heartstrings just a little bit more, we have video from last night from Geno we're going to play again. This is him talking about wanting to stay here as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks and loving this team.
I don't want to talk to that about that right now because nothing happened yet, and obviously this thing had a part of my heart right here, and like I say, I feel like I'm at home. This team is being a lot to me, and all the last 2 years being in my career changed everything here in Arizona. I am who I am right now because last 2 years being great, and this is it's a lot about this team. You know what I mean? And like I say, I don't want to think about that now because it's nothing happened yet. I just want to wait the time, and like I say, we got to fly today to Pittsburgh. I'm gonna enjoy my off day tomorrow and see what happens Friday. So I go day by day, and if something happened, let's wait for it. Like I say, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to make anything change. It is what it is, and I just want to think about Friday.
It has to be hard for him, and it was hard for even me. Like, I wanted to pull Geno aside and just tell him from, like what you said earlier, Jesse, like from both a professional standpoint, as someone that's covered him in his time here, and as someone that's a true fan of his. I just wanted to thank him for his time here, but it felt weird and awkward because I don't know if his time here is over. There is a case to be made to trade Geno, and I think that's an easy case to be made, and most likely the one that the Diamondbacks will pursue. However, is there a conceivable case to keep him? And I mean, do you think that it would be negligent on the Diamondbacks to keep Geno, considering how high his value is? That is, and with that being said, that's to say that he stays on this tear that he's on. There's always the dreaded possibility of Geno staying in Arizona and then also going cold and making it seem like, they didn't sell a stock when it was at its peak, right? There's that aspect.
I do think there's a case to hold on to Geno. I mean, as you said earlier, the Diamondbacks are not completely out of this thing. I mean, are the odds very much stacked against them? Absolutely. Fangraphs gives them about a 10% chance to make the playoffs right now, which is not good.
It's actually
But
higher
10
than I
isn't.
thought they would give them, honestly.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
10%. Wow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 10 isn't nothing. I mean,
Right,
the
right.
Diamondbacks playoff odds dropped to 13% in August of 2023. And that year they went to the World Series, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is a case to be made to keep Geno. What I think is going to be pretty challenging for the Diamondbacks, and what they're probably just going to have to come to grips with, is that this guy is in high demand around the league. I mean, Gambo, I think, just tweeted within the last couple hours that 12 teams have checked in on
Good
Geno
Lord.
Suarez. And I mean, 12 is basically every single contender. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
right.
really all of the relevant teams in baseball. So I think in a normal year where you're just getting rental prices, which tend to not be all that great. And of course, the Dbacks could give Geno the qualifying offer if they held on to him and likely get a draft pick right after the first round, which has a lot of value. So I think in a normal year, it really could make sense to hold on to him. But this year, given the amount of demand that there appears to be for someone like him, I think it would probably be a disservice to the franchise in the big picture to keep Geno at that point.
This is like, Jesse, in a way, you tend to have a very savvy sales ability where you will buy something and then turn around and sell it for a profit, right? And in a way, I hate to take the human factor out of this and make Geno seem like an inanimate object, but like, yeah, there is a factor of trying to take the emotion out of it. If you know
Yeah.
Geno, if you talk to Geno, if you're a fan of his, if you've watched him on these post-game press conferences, if you watched him sit there last night at the top of the rail and take a moment
Yeah.
in at Chase Field, it's hard for you not to want to keep him on this team, not just now, but forever. However, that's where you have to disconnect yourself from it and do what's essentially right, but doesn't have the emotion connected to it. And again, because of 12 teams checking in on Geno, that means there's 12 teams that are going to be competing against each other to offer the Diamondbacks more than the last guy in order to make this happen. And Jesse, I'll tell you this much: as much as I hate the idea of Geno being traded, I talked to Damon. Me and Damon, I watched Moneyball on the way to Puerto Rico and the way back on the plane. I would be pumped to see video of the Mike Hazen phone calls that he was taking in the same way that Billy Bean was taking the phone calls for trades at one point in that movie, where they're just quick little conversation and he's like, hurry up, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to give me an offer on Geno or else he's gone. Bam, and hangs up the phone and just starts playing hardball. I would also love him to eventually trade Geno just to the back to the Mariners, because that would make their entire and fleece Jerry Dipoto. So it makes the entire time of Geno leaving and coming back to the Mariners just an absolute failure for them as a franchise, no matter how good he is. However, it would allow us to get him away from us, but still make him happy and send him back to his friends. So I feel like a Mariners trade is my favorite. It's the front runner for me so far. Got to give us Andres Munoz though. That's big part of the deal.
I don't know about Andres Munoz, but I mean, a Diamondbacks Mariners trade at the deadline is inevitable. You can lock it in right now.
It's going to happen.
The Diamondbacks and the Mariners. We don't know if it's going to be Geno, but maybe it's Josh Naylor. Maybe, I actually, jokes aside, I actually do think Josh Naylor makes a lot of sense for the Mariners as well.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, I will. Before we move on, I did want to get this from you. I know we've talked a little bit about trades, but I don't think you and I have had a chance to really dive in deep. What are your realistic expectations? Do you think that the Diamondbacks do essentially, I don't want to call it clean house, but they have the 4 guys that are healthy and that have expiring contracts? We know those are Merrill, Zach, Josh Naylor, Geno. Do you think that they trade all 4 guys by the trade deadline?
That's a really tough question. Based on the reporting that I've seen out there, I would say probably no. Pretty much every report has unanimously said that the Diamondbacks will trade either Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly, but not both.
Okay.
People don't seem to be talking that way about Naylor and Suarez, so maybe it's more likely that both of those guys could be dealt. But there seems to be a belief within the organization that you wouldn't want to trade both Gallen and Kelly, because at that point you'd just be really depleting your pitching staff and you wouldn't have enough guys to step in reliably. I don't know if I agree with that, if I'm being totally honest, because I think that this team as constructed already has pretty long odds to make the playoffs. And if you're going to trade a Geno and a Merrill Kelly or something like that, I don't think it's your odds are just going to be worse at that point. And I don't really see the need to hold on to a Zach Gallen or hold on to a Josh Naylor at that point.
Right.
I would just try to maximize what you can get. But there is the qualifying offer element to this as well, where you could get draft pick compensation for really any of these 4 guys, I think. And because of that kind of sets a certain threshold that teams are going to have to clear in order for it to make sense to trade any of them.
Well, our guy Scotty Mack just stole it from me, but I was going to say you're going to have Desclafani and Bryce Jarvis starting if that's the case, and that seems pretty far down your depth chart as far as options are concerned. Now, what would they need to make, like 10 starts, something like? I mean, there's not a lot of starts that you would need out of those guys. However, it just really does, if that trade does happen, it really does wave the white flag on the season. And again, we feel like if the trades happen in general, that it waves the white flag on the season, but I don't really feel necessarily that needs to be the case. I do think that there are moves that could be made that can improve this team and can also shed some of those guys to add, some depth in some ways and maybe even, set this team up for a little bit more success next season, considering the pieces that they're missing to start 2026. But I also had one more question for you before we move on. And it's just something that popped in my head because you said it while we were discussing this. But how much does the World Series run really skew our view on everything with this team, right? Like, you were talking about a year where the Diamondbacks, in fact, got swept by the same Astros team when they needed just to win one game to make the postseason. They almost didn't make the postseason, and if for all intents and purposes probably shouldn't have made the postseason, yet they did, and they make it all the way to the World Series. Then they improve in 2024. They win nearly 90 games, and yet in a year when they probably should have made the World Series, made the playoffs, they have that taken away from them by this, weird weather situation that resulted in a 2-game playoff by the Mets and the Braves that they split, right? So overall, it's just one of those things that it feels like, because the Diamondbacks did what they did in the playoffs, we are always going to have this feeling that just give us the 6th seed. Just let us eke in. Just let us get there. And then once we do, we'll hit 4 home runs in a row against the Dodgers and make it all the way to the World Series. But it's almost like, and especially because this team is comprised of a lot of the same pieces that was part of that 2023 team, it's almost like that's the reason why so many fans, I think, hold out hope and don't want to see them turn into sellers here at the trade deadline, no matter how bad their record is.
It's a really fair point. I mean, I think at the same time, I see some fairly meaningful differences between this team and that 2023 team. I think, believe it or not, the 2023 bullpen, even before the trade deadline, was quite a bit better than this bullpen right now. I mean, the Diamondbacks are, no offense to any of these guys that they've picked up. I think a lot of them have actually pitched pretty well lately, but having Jake Woodford come into a 1-run game in the 8th inning, these are guys who were in AAA just a few weeks ago, let go by other organizations and whatnot. This team is really, really far when it comes to the bullpen from where you would want to be. Now, granted, I mean, Shelby Miller, it sounds like, is coming back, and Jalen Beeks is coming back pretty soon. Ryan Thompson, maybe not far behind. So maybe if you squint, you can imagine those guys coming back, plus you add an arm or two at the deadline, and maybe your bullpen could be okay the rest of the year.
Don't give me hope. Don't give me hope, Jesse.
But then there's, there's also the starting pitching side of things where, even if you hold on to everyone, this has been one of the worst rotations in baseball, certainly bottom 10, I think pretty close to bottom 5. And that doesn't exactly inspire confidence. And the other factor, which is maybe the biggest thing, is that the competition is higher this year. The bar that you have to reach appears to be higher. The Dbacks have to leapfrog 4 teams to get that 3rd wild card spot. They were never in a situation like that in 2023, even when things, got a little dicey there in the middle of the season.
Great point. Well, we are going to talk about the competition that the Diamondbacks face this weekend and the Pittsburgh Pirates on the other side of this break. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Well, Phoenix Raceway is having the championship race for NASCAR this October. And let me tell you, I've talked about it a bit on the show. I've become a huge NASCAR guy. Go Ryan Blaney. I'm new to it, so forgive me for being a noob, but I've enjoyed NASCAR so much since we made our first trip out to Phoenix Raceway. So I implore you, if you've never been out, that this is something you have to experience in person. And I was told this and scoffed at it until I did, and now look at me, I'm all in. I own NASCAR gear, folks. That's not a lie, but nothing can match the smell of burnt rubber and fuel in the air, the sound of the cars, and everything else that NASCAR has to offer. And of course, NASCAR fans do get the best access in any sport. And what other sport do you get to go down if you just upgrade your ticket a little bit and mingle with the athletes and take pictures with their cars and all of that? Of course, the Phoenix Raceway has that to offer. You're in the Desert Diamond Circle infield experience, up close in the garages, meeting drivers, walking the track, catching the pre-race concert, and so much more. So this is it. This is the big championship race for NASCAR. Don't miss your chance to witness the NASCAR championship weekend in person, coming to Phoenix Raceway October 31st through November 2nd. Tickets for Sunday's Cup Series championship race sell out every single year, so move fast to get yours before they're gone. And here's the kicker. It's been here for a while, folks. If you are not familiar, the NASCAR Championship race has been here in Phoenix almost every year. And now, after this year, NASCAR's taking championship weekend on the road starting in 2026. So this is your last chance to catch it in Phoenix for a while. Tickets, hospitality, upgrades, and more are still available. Get yours at phoenixraceway.com. And July is a great time of the year for pool parties, for hanging out with friends, for celebrating America on July 4th, but it's also time for your air conditioning to be overworked and for your bills to skyrocket. So you can get yourself a smart thermostat if you don't already have one. That smart thermostat can help you schedule your temperatures in your home. You can also change those temps when you're away. It's a great feature and it will save you lots of money. A smart thermostat works with your APS rate plan to help you automatically adjust the temperature in your home. And for every 1 degree you raise your thermostat, you could save up to 2 to 3% on your cooling costs. So check out, if you don't have a smart thermostat right now, the APS Marketplace. APS customers may be eligible for smart thermostats for as low as $0 when you enroll in the APS Cool Rewards program. If you already have a smart thermostat at home, you can see if it's eligible to enroll in Cool Rewards. Plus, free installation is available at marketplace.aps.com. Must be an APS customer and pay shipping and taxes. Other restrictions do apply. Go to marketplace.aps.com for more information. Well, the Arizona Diamondbacks take on a fairly hot Pittsburgh Pirates team this weekend, Jesse, in Pittsburgh. One of my favorite ballparks in all of baseball. Just gorgeous, gorgeous view. Also a team that has not had a very good season, but did just dispatch with the Detroit Tigers. I think they swept the Tigers in their 3-game series. So let's take a look here at how the Pirates season has been going so far. Beautiful shot of one Paul Skeens there. 42-61 this year with a minus 62 run differential. They are 4-6 in their last 10 games. They do have a 3.78 starting pitching ERA and a 3.93 relief pitching ERA. The Diamondbacks, as I said, their OPS is second in all of baseball. Meanwhile, the Pirates, they're vastly in the opposite direction. They are 30th in baseball at 643 for their OPS. They do have 15 outs above average, though, which is good for 7th. So they're a pretty good defensive team. And again, pitching, Jesse, what I wouldn't give, once again, to have the 9th best starting pitching ERA and the 17th best relief pitching ERA. Diamondbacks would probably have 10 more games under their belt if they did.
I think that is pretty safe to say. The Pirates, to their credit, Derek, they pitch pretty well. The offense thing, they don't do that so well. They have a 78 OPS plus as a team coming into this series,
Yikes.
which is very,
Yikes.
very bad. O'Neal Cruz, I think, is their only everyday player who has an OPS plus north of 100, and even he is only at like 103. So it's not a good offense by any means, but they can pitch, and unfortunately for the Dbacks, they're going to have to deal with Paul Skeens in this series on that Sunday game.
They are, and we have the probable pitchers for this series. Let's take a look at that. Jesse, I hate the fact that this Zach Gallen-Paul Skeens matchup on Sunday should realistically be a huge marquee matchup, and yet with the way Zach Gallen has pitched this year, it's hard to say that. We do have Ryan Nelson going in game 1 against Mike Burrows. He is 1-3 with a 4.70 ERA. Game 2, we have Merrill the mainstay going up against Andrew Heaney. He is 4-9 this year with a 5.03 ERA. Both of those guys haven't been great for the Pirates, but you know who has, and that's one Paul Skeens going up against the Milkman in the finale. Paul Skeens this year, 5-8, 1.91 ERA, 137 strikeouts for Skeens. And Jesse, there's even a little talk in Pittsburgh about possibly shutting Skeens down early with how bad the Pirates season has been. Could impact his ability to be in the Cy Young race, and also not something baseball fans in general outside of Pittsburgh want to see. I'm not even sure fans in Pittsburgh want to see that. But yeah, Michael says it in the chat. He says, good Lord, 1.91 ERA and 5-8. Again, this is why wins and losses make no difference in baseball at all. The amount of times that man has received no run support is staggering.
I don't know, Derek. I think he's just not a winning pitcher. You know, he just doesn't have.
He's a bum. He's a bust. Get him out of here. I'm a Miz fan.
Yeah, Paul Skeens, to the point of potentially them shutting him down. It has been interesting to see his pitch counts have been lower lately. He's been in the upper 70s to mid upper 80s here for a while. it doesn't feel like the Pirates are really inclined to push him all that deep into games, which certainly bodes well if you're the D-backs and you're able to see some pitches, as this team often does pretty well. You might be able to get Paul Skeens out of the game after 5 innings. That's actually kind of been the norm for him here in recent days. So I guess that maybe inspires some confidence. But yeah, still mind blowing to think the Pirates are 10-11 this season in games started by quite possibly the best pitcher in the sport. It's pretty hard to believe.
It's also, like I said, a little sad that we are not super hyped about a Gallen Skeens matchup. It's hard to be with the way Gallen has pitched this year. However, Gallen does step up for the big occasions, and I feel like facing off against Skeens might be enough of that. I don't know.
Well,
It's a away game. It's not happening at Chase Field, so there's one in the category for Zach Gallen having a good game. And again, it's also just a big time matchup. I know usually he reserves those good outings for like the New York teams he's trying out for. However, this like Piece of Yoshi says, you guys aren't hyped about East Coast Gallen. So yeah, again, he might be right about that.
Maybe the location will have an impact on him, but this won't be the first Gallen Skeens matchup that
True.
we've seen even this season. We saw Gallen and Skeens matchup, I don't know, back in April or May, and the Pirates won that game 10-1. So not great history there from the Diamondbacks side of things.
Well, the Diamondbacks again. I'm tired of saying like they need to win. That time's over, and I think that Derek Hall's comments today confirm that, right? Like, yeah, they have this 9-game road trip. Yeah, they could show out and go 9-0. I don't really think at this point, obviously, the road trip ends or extends beyond the trade deadline, but I don't think even if they go on a streak between now and the trade deadline, that's really going to be enough to impact or change the direction it's gone. And honestly, I don't know if it should. I don't really know if suddenly playing good baseball is enough to make you believe that they're going to continue to play good baseball on the other side of the trade deadline. But that's what makes this team, I think, so confounding this year. And again, it's like you also feel like, speaking of those position players, somebody suggested that maybe we trade the Pirates for Keller and Bednar, and we can just have guys walk across the field while we're playing the Pirates. And I wouldn't hate that. Maybe that's something that they're no, we wouldn't. We wouldn't do that to our players. No way would you send guys to the Pirates. That's a fate worse than death. But I will say that, like, again, it's hard not to feel like this is irrelevant, right? This stretch. I mean, you do want to see them play well, but I don't really think that there's much that they can do. I also hate the idea that the trade deadline is the end of their season, right? Yes, the Diamondbacks might sell. Yes, like you said, they are rumored to trade mostly maybe 2 guys, maybe 3 at the most, but probably not all 4 guys that are on expiring contracts. So maybe, just maybe, they find a way to start winning with the changes that they make. It's hard to believe that that's really going to happen, and I can understand the front office not really thinking that's the case.
It'll be a long shot. I mean, even if they were to buy completely, I mean, it would still kind of feel like a long shot at this point.
Absolutely
but
would be.
There's enough like weird randomness in baseball that by no means is the Diamondbacks season over on July 31st or right now or yesterday, whenever people want to say the time of death was. I
gave it on Monday, Jesse. That's when I gave it. I believe it was on Monday. No, Tuesday. Tuesday was the time of death.
I understand where people are coming from. I mean, this is obviously a really important hinge point because if you buy at the trade deadline, then you're upping your chances, and if you sell, obviously those chances are going to go down. But I still think about the Tigers last year, Derek, when the Tigers on July 24th a year ago, so a year ago today, the Tigers were also 50-53. And the Diamondbacks are 5.5 games out. The Tigers were 6 games out of the wild card. And they had 5 teams to jump over. And the Diamondbacks have 4. And beyond that, the Tigers did sell at the trade deadline. They traded away Jack Flaherty, one of their best pitchers, and because they didn't really think that things were going to work out for them. And then before you know it, they're making a pretty deep run into the postseason. So you never know, Derek. You never know in baseball. The time of death is not going to be anytime soon if it does happen.
I can't believe you just gave me more hope. I can't believe you did that. Of all people, Jesse, of all people. Well, on the other side of this break, we are going to talk about on this day in Diamondbacks history. And Jesse, hilariously enough, today was opening day for the Arizona Diamondbacks back in the pandemic season of 2020 on July 24th. And one Madison Bumgarner made his illustrious debut for this franchise. We're going to talk about it on the other side of this break. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Well, you might want to get yourself some pure edibles in time for the trade deadline, because you might not like what happens, and you might need to either get yourself some sleep or elevate your mood, and you can do so with our friends at Pure Edibles. Their products are wonderful. They have their effects clearly listed on each tin. They let you know what kind of strain you're getting, whether it's a hybrid, a sativa, or an indica. And they also, of course, like I said, list the effects that you'll get from those candies. And Pure Edibles is a full-fledged candy company. They don't just make gummies. They also make hard candies, chews, and their kicks, which are their version of Starbursts. And of course, like I said, they have a wide variety of strains, doses, and effects that you can choose from. They are a company from right here in Flagstaff, Arizona. They originally created at Noble Grove Dispensary, the home of Pure Edibles, and now they are made right here in Phoenix, Arizona. And they are designed to be ripped or bit in half, making them easily shareable or easy to dial in your exact dose. So go find yourself some Pure Edibles right now from one of over 130 dispensaries across Arizona, and get yourself prepared for that inevitable Geno Suarez trade. Speaking of making things better, speaking of getting away from bad times, you can do so at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. It is the place to take a staycation this summer, and let me tell you, summer might be over soon, but that doesn't have to stop you from going out and having a wonderful time at Gila River. You can check out their pool. They have the bar out there with the pina coladas. You know, that's where you'll find me. They also have a wide variety of games on their gaming floor. Of course, over 4,500 slots and live table games, some state-of-the-art table games as well. And you can catch every thrilling moment of sports action at their BetMGM Sportsbook with massive screens, delicious food and drinks, and all the action. Make sure to catch everything you want to catch there. It's the ultimate place to watch and win. Place your bets and experience the excitement. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. Well, it is Thursday, Jesse. Glad to have you here on a non-game day. I still feel like maybe your appearances on this show might have impacted the health of the pitching staff as well, but that's just speculation. But we do every Thursday talk about some historic moments in franchise history, as it is Throwback Thursday. And boy, today was a big one, Jesse. On this day, on July 24th, 2020, the Diamondbacks finally opened up their baseball season. For those of you that have completely put the pandemic out of your memory, we were not playing baseball for most of the year. And thankfully, after watching a lot of KBO, Major League Baseball finally figured out a way to bring baseball back without fans in the stands. We eventually got to see fun cardboard cutouts around stadiums around Major League Baseball. I got to go to some pandemic games where I had to wear a mask and stay very far away from Jack Summers in the press box. And also, Jesse, we very much had the debut on this day when baseball finally opened back up of one Madison Bumgarner for the Arizona Diamondbacks franchise, making his debut against the San Diego Padres in a 2-7 loss back on July 24th, 2020. And this is a period of time I think we all wish we could forget, including the Madison Bumgarner tenure for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
What a day, Derek. What a day this was in Diamondbacks history. Yeah, Madison Bumgarner averaged 87.9 with his four-seam fastball that game. I'm looking back at the numbers now. And somehow I don't remember being all that alarmed by it at the time.
No, well, because it was a weird season, right? Like, we were all talking about how weird the spring training was, how weird it was not to have fans in the stands. So, like, anything that happened during that time was kind of attributed to just how weird the world was and how long it took for opening day to come around, right? And I mean, that I remember that definitely being the narrative around his velocity for his first couple of starts.
And to be fair, his velocity did come back to an extent the next season. Unfortunately, he was never really the pitcher the Diamondbacks hoped he would be. But yeah, I remember this game. I remember Mad Bum throwing up 5 zeros. I think the game was 0-0 going to the 6th inning. And it was like, all right, the D-back, the velo's down. This pandemic thing is weird, as you just said. But look at Mad Bum. Like, this guy's a pitcher. He's just going out there and he's doing the thing. And then in the 6th inning, he started giving up some hard contact. I think the Padres put up 3 runs. Eric Hosmer, I seem to remember hitting a ball into the gap. And then the Diamondbacks go on to lose pretty sort of half blowout fashion with a 7-2 final score. So yeah, I for a while there, Derek, attributed Mad Bum out of the gate, as you said, to it's a weird situation, but he looks like the same guy who's just knows how to use his arsenal and all the things. But obviously, that's not the way things turned out.
It's good stuff. And I mean, again, we made lots of excuses for Mad Bum, but essentially the biggest one was that guy wanted to be a Cowboy here in Arizona more than he wanted to be a Diamondback. That's for sure. But Killer Rex says red flag from the jump for sure. And there's also talk about Mad Bum's numbers actually being better than Erod's numbers as a member of this franchise at a similar point in their career. Now, what I will say about Erod is, again, let me throw the excuse out there, but I'm going to anyway. It's never felt like Erod has been healthy his entire tenure as an Arizona Diamondback. And in fact, after he came back from the most recent stint, I heard him talk about feeling good better than I've ever heard him talk about it. And it carried over just to his last outing where he went scoreless, right? Erod said that his fastball command finally felt where it was a few years ago, and that he felt good, he felt healthy, he felt strong. And I mean, this is a considerable amount of time off since he took that brief stint on the IL. So it just feels like maybe that was a big reason why we've never seen Erod be at what we expected him to be as a member of this franchise. Also, Diamondbacks free agent starting pitchers never seem to work out. So that is a curse that is bestowed upon us thanks to Randy Johnson, and we will never get past that curse. But a couple of other things happened this week, Jesse, in Diamondbacks history. On July 21st in 1999, Tony Womack hit the first inside the park home run in franchise history, and it wasn't just an inside the park home run. Womack legged out in the 9th inning an inside the park grand slam off of well-known reliever Billy Wagner, the ace. Yeah, to give the Diamondbacks a 7-4 victory over the Houston Astros.
Wow. Wait a second. So it was an inside the park home run, and
it was an inside the park grand slam.
Okay, so it's not a walk-off. He didn't walk them off.
No, but it doesn't specify that, but it does say it was the first inside the park home run in franchise history. So that's its importance. But it was also...
For some reason, I mentally added walk-off to what you said. And I was
No, I did not. I did not, but they did win the game because of it.
Kept running if they won the game set. If you only need 5 runs to win the game. If the other team has 4, you don't need to keep running around the bases. But that makes more sense. My mistake.
Right. Also, for the 3rd straight year, the Diamondbacks made a deal back in 2001 before the trade deadline, acquiring starting pitcher and Mesa, Arizona native Albie Lopez from the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time, and again, that was, of course, the reason why they won the World Series, the addition of Albie Lopez. For those of you that don't know, the great Albie Lopez. But last but not least, the most important thing here, besides the pandemic opening day, is that on this day in July, not on this day, but one day ago, 2 days from now, July 26, 2008, Brandon Webb struck out Giants' Dave Roberts for his 1,000th career strikeout, joining Randy Johnson as the only other Diamondback to reach that mark. And I will say that Brandon Webb is one of those pitchers that I feel like his legacy, the farther we get away from the time where he pitched, the farther people, the less people know about how good Brandon Webb truly was in his career. Yeah. And what a devastating loss it was to lose him to injury when he did have to hang it up.
Yeah, it was kind of a bizarre situation. I mean, obviously, we're seeing all kinds of pitching injuries in baseball today.
Absolutely.
But Brandon Webb was not, he wasn't great because he was throwing like 99 miles an hour every single game. He was a sinker baller. had some good secondary stuff on top of that. So very unfortunate, Derek. I know you guys have been talking about what ifs in Diamondbacks history
No
recently, and
kidding. Yeah.
that's definitely one of the
That was one
big
of
ones
mine for
that pops into
sure.
my head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. I mean, where does this team go if Brandon Webb stays as its ace and can maintain that level of excellence that he was able to maintain? But we have more to talk about here. We are going to switch gears here and talk about the Diamondbacks' first first couple of draft picks. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind everybody right now that the PHNX Die Hard training camp sale is here. It is live. And it is basically the cost of a t-shirt. So once again, if you want to get in on being a diehard and join the PHNX family, Cardinals training camp is here, and so is our best diehard deal of the year. Join today for just $36 for the entire year. That's just $3 a month for full access to Cardinals coverage, a free t-shirt, exclusive access to our Discord. We got merch and event discounts and so much more, including exclusive content for our diehards as well. This Cardinal season starts now. Make your move over at gophnx.com/intro-offer-social. And once again, Jesse, football coming in here, muscling their way into our baseball season. We're not even to our trade deadline yet. We're not even into the thick of it. Here's football being like, we're here, and everybody's going to clamor and go watch football. But we do have baseball talk to talk about. And maybe one of the reasons why football is so exciting is because when you have a draft and you have young players added to a team, they make an impact. They make an impact immediately in some cases. They're immediately out there becoming a star. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks drafted 20 young men, 17 of which have signed, and we have no idea when we're going to see any of them. But we're going to talk here about the Diamondbacks' first 3 draft picks from day one. A little on draft talk here. Let's take a look at what we have. Kason Cunningham, Jesse, the Diamondbacks' first round pick, 18th overall. The one thing that I heard time and time again about Cunningham is that he was the number 14 overall prospect by MLB Pipeline, and that the Diamondbacks kind of got themselves a little bit of a sleeper here, 4 picks deep at 18.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the reception across the industry from all the different pundits and whatnot who know things about the draft, a lot of people speak very positively about this pick for the Diamondbacks. He's short, Derek, which is a bit of a trend with this organization, of course. Kason Cunningham is listed at 5'10", 182. And it's never stopped the Diamondbacks before, and it certainly didn't here. But the Diamondbacks feel that he has perhaps the best hit tool in the entire draft, at least among high school position players, which is really impressive. I think especially with guys out of high school, you like to have a good hit tool to sort of fall back on. It just, I think, gives you a little more confidence in the grand scheme of things that long journey through the minors and up to the major leagues is something that the players is really cut out for. So yeah, I mean, we'll be able to really evaluate this pick in probably like 4 or 5 or 6 years. But right now, I think they did pretty well here.
He was ranked the number 1 draft prospect in the state of Texas by MLB Pipeline and Perfect Game, and that's impressive because we know Texas produces some good baseball players. The number 3 high school prospect by Prep Baseball. So again, this might be a guy, again, a little far off, being only 19 years old, but we know how baseball is, and it does feel like now that baseball players are moving through the system a bit quicker than they have in the past. We know that's not the case with a guy like Drew Jones, but again, Corbin Carroll is one of those players that kind of changes your eye level when it comes to how quickly a prospect can get into the majors once they're healthy, right? Like Corbin got held back by that shoulder injury, but the minute that Corbin was healthy, he just kind of sped through the process. He was older, so it made a little bit more sense. But I mean, again, this is getting to a point now with baseball where we are seeing draft picks, get called up at an earlier age. A lot of guys making their debut at 21, 22 years old. So no idea how long until the Diamondbacks see him, but with their bullpen their farm system being a little depleted, a little, lacking a little depth, there are a lot of opportunities for these young guys in the organization if they can have success to move up through the system fairly quickly.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think Cason Cunningham is, I mean, you never wanna place, like, big expectations with a timeline for a high school player, but
Sure.
I think the fact that he does have a very well-established hit tool, he has a good feel for the strike zone and, is able to hit line drives all over the field. I think that's a big asset for him, and he's mostly filled out already at this point, so I don't think he's the type of player where you're waiting a couple years to kind of see him grow into, physically what you would want him to be as a big leaguer. I think he's kind of already there. So obviously, still a lot of development to be done here. But I think an exciting young player, and yet another guy who plays up the middle, who projects to be a pretty good big leaguer potentially someday.
Well, the other guy that the Diamondbacks get in essentially the first round, I know it's the compensation round, but their compensation pick was Patrick Forbes. He is a college player. He's from the University of Louisville, 21 years old. He is the number 31 overall draft prospect by MLB Pipeline. I don't want to say a reach for the Diamondbacks when you're there in the compensation picks. But again, a guy that the Diamondbacks get, a right-handed pitcher who has a lot of accolades. He was on the 2024 USA Collegiate National Team, 2024 College Sports Communication Academic All-District Team, and the ACC Academic Team. So he's a smart guy. Made a lot of, like I said, a lot of achievements here in baseball. And over 3 seasons at Louisville, he had himself a 227 opponent batting average and 159 strikeouts. So not terrible there in regards to what his numbers were that he put up there. But also, again, this is baseball, so you have no idea what you're going to get. You have no idea even how college stats are going to translate over to the minor leagues, let alone the major leagues.
I don't think Brandon Pfaadt would be very happy with you right now, Derek.
Oh
The
my
way that
God!
you're
I mispronounced it, didn't I? I said
You did it
Louisville.
twice.
I did it twice. Oh my God! Sorry, Brandon. Louisville. Sorry.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, Patrick Forbes is interesting to me. He's a guy with a big fastball. That's kind of the first thing that stands out to me. It's mid 90s up to 100 with a lot of ride and carry from what most of these scouting reports seem to say.
Yeah.
And he has a pretty big slider as well to go with that. I don't think he's had to branch out beyond those 2 pitches a whole lot. Apparently he has a cutter, and then he's messed around with a changeup a little bit too. Oftentimes you can still be pretty effective in college without really needing much more beyond those 2 pitches if they're as good as his are. So yeah, I think that this is a guy who has a fairly high ceiling. I mean, you think about a big fastball and a big slider. I mean, that's definitely the type of pitcher that could one day be near the top of the rotation. It is interesting to me though that if you look at his numbers at Louisville, his ERA is actually not particularly good. He had a
Yeah.
4.42 ERA
Yep.
in 15 starts this past season. I think you might have mentioned that. So it hasn't quite translated in the way that maybe you would expect, given how big the stuff is. At least it didn't in college. But he also, hasn't been pitching for real long in a rotation. So I think there's still a lot to work with here in the long run.
That's probably what is most enticing is, like you said, his stuff kind of being big league ready, even though the results and the stats aren't there. Because at the end of the day, you don't really care about what their results were. You just care if a player like him is talented enough to coach and to develop in a major league system and could become a major leaguer one day. And yeah, absolutely looks like he has that potential. Last was Brian Curley, Jesse. He was the number 102 overall draft pick, drafted 92nd by the Diamondbacks here in the 3rd round. And he was already a 16th round draft pick by the Pirates back in 2024, but he did not sign. He now goes in the 3rd round, so significantly higher here by those standards, and he signs his deal with the Diamondbacks. Again, he's a right-handed pitcher. He's 22 out of the University of Georgia. He posted, it looks like he made 17 appearances, 10 starts, going 4-4 with 2 saves and a 3.55 ERA, and that was in his season in 2025.
Yeah, this is another guy who's a little bit undersized. He's listed at 5'10", 212. So, sometimes you think about the long-term projectability, like could a guy at that size succeed in a big league rotation for a long time? There's some valid questions to be asked there, but there are also some very good pitchers in baseball right now who are around 5'10". It's not a total, deal breaker in terms of a player's development. Another guy who has a pretty big fastball, some good carry from what I've read, up to 100 miles per hour. He actually started the season as the closer for Georgia, and then he moved into the rotation and was their number one starter by the end of the season. So another guy who hasn't been pitching in a rotation as a starter for all that long. And I think that maybe makes it a little bit easier to dream on what he could become. If nothing else, I think there's a solid relief pitcher profile here. Maybe a chance for him to come through the system relatively quickly if the Diamondbacks decide to move him to the bullpen relatively early on.
It's hard to be excited about draft picks in baseball. Like I was just saying about the football comparison and how quickly those players make an impact on their sport versus, what you get here from this draft. But overall, what was your feeling about how the Diamondbacks did drafting? Did you think they did a good job? And again, it's like evaluating based on other people's evaluations, You're talking about 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds in some cases that have barely even had chance to live life, let alone become, potential Major League Baseball stars. But what were your thoughts on how the Diamondbacks did?
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm not really qualified to assess a draft given that I haven't seen I haven't seen any of these guys in person, certainly, and I don't have access to the very large amount of data and information that teams do when they're making these picks. So it's hard for me to really evaluate. I'm just kind of going off of the same reports that Keith Law and people at Baseball America who really dig into this stuff. I'm just going off all that stuff, and they seem to speak pretty positively about what the Diamondbacks did. They took a lot of pitchers. I think it was 13 out of 17, 14 out of 17 picks, something like that. So given the state of this farm system right now, probably not a bad thing that it worked out that way. The Diamondbacks are pretty thin on the pitching front, although who knows, maybe in a week they'll be actually in decent shape from a pitching prospect standpoint. But certainly that's a need for the organization right now.
That's gross. It's gross that you said that, but it's true. I think that again, when with all these trade rumors and everything, and I'm glad you clarified earlier about the Diamondbacks pitching situation and how realistically, it's not to say they don't have the human beings to fill out their starting rotation, but if they trade Zach and Merrill, their options aren't good. And I mean, forget that. What happens if they have an injury beyond that? That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you kind of just assume, like in your head, as you plan out what a buy course would look like, or a situation where
Right.
they hold on to the pieces they have. There are certainly no guarantees that the Diamondbacks are going to make it to the end of the season without sustaining any more injuries. In fact, it's probably unrealistic to expect that. So, but you never know in this sport, Derek. As I said earlier, I'll give you guys the FanGraphs numbers and try to be realistic, but you also have stories like the Detroit Tigers from last year that do happen. And
Stop giving us hope. He keeps giving us hope, Aryton. He keeps telling us this. He prefaces it with logic, and then he has to keep bringing up the Tigers. That's my job, Jesse. I keep bringing up the Tigers from last year. I'm the one that's supposed to give false hope, not you. But you're right, and I think that's the reason why this whole thing is crazy, right? Baseball in general is crazy. Baseball in general is where if you are hitting a ball 10% less than another guy, you're a bum and that guy's a star. And that's literally how the difference in stats can work with this game. Same thing with teams, right? The Diamondbacks were 53-50 at this time last year. And yes, they went on during the month of July and August to be one of the best teams in baseball. So that definitely is the reason why they went on that run. That's why last year's team is different than this year's team, right? But at the same time, it's like, man, it's literally only a difference of 6 games. And yet last year we weren't even talking about selling at the trade deadline. We were all in, and the Diamondbacks came 1 game short of making the playoffs. Now this year, a difference of 6 games means that they're horrible, and that they that it would be a idiotic move to not trade all of these pieces. Obviously, a lot is different between these two teams, including the number of guys on expiring contracts at the end of the year and how good those guys actually are. I mean, that's the other thing here is that the Diamondbacks aren't just the talk of the trade deadline because of Eugenio Suarez. They are also the talk of the trade deadline because Josh Naylor is having an incredible season. Zach Gallen is known to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, and Merrill Kelly can quietly change a staff overnight by being added to it. So it's there's a lot of assets the Diamondbacks have to move, and essentially the windfall could be hard. It just could be too tempting to turn away. But Jessie, I thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you stopping by. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. He is at Jessie and Friedman. Snakes Territory is on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. And also follow Snakes Territory on Twitter. Follow Jack Summers as well. He's at Shoe Wizard. Was it Shoe Wizard 58?
59.
59. Yeah. I shorted him one. Why are there 58 other Shoe Wizards? I don't know about that. We need to figure that part out. But anyway, until then, make sure you follow Jessie. Also, make sure you follow me. I am at Cap_caveman with a K. Our guy Aryton has been on the ones and twos. Thank you for your support today in the absence of Damon, who abandoned us because of how bad this team is. He's at Freckled Mambo, which is still the best Twitter handle in this entire building. Our show is at PHNX_Dbacks. But as always, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for your time. Jessie, thank you for your time. I know this isn't an easy time, but we will be back tomorrow with a post-game show after the Diamondbacks' first game here against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So make sure to join us for the post-game show tomorrow. And until then, keep hope alive. Who knows what's happened? Geno didn't want to take those questions about being traded for good reason. He doesn't know what's going to happen, and neither do we. So maybe here in a week, we're talking about somehow, some way, Suarez still inexplicably being part of this team. But again, we thank you guys so much for your time. Make sure you guys have a wonderful evening and a day off from baseball. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Until then, enjoy your evening, enjoy your time with your family. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it is so much more fun when we can just finally get through the trade deadline and start talking about something else other than gutting this team.
We all silly like the mayor.